Danny Flexen here for Seconds Out. Delighted to be joined by promoter Dmitry Salita. Dmitry, how are you?
I'm doing great, getting ready for next week. We have a big show here in Detroit, February 20th. Big time Boxing USA, which we're very excited about, and just putting the final touches on this great event.
Super Tuesday, of course. First show in your new deal with DAZN, which we'll talk about presently. But first of all, tell us why Tuesday is the night you've decided to go on. It's not, we haven't seen it since Tuesday night fights, really.
Right. So we wanted to get going, and most of the shows are going to be on Thursday. However, because of the DAZN schedule, as well as the venue, which is going to be the Wayne State Fieldhouse, which is a beautiful venue in downtown Detroit, home of the Detroit Pistons G League team, the Motor City Cruise, was only available because of the playoffs and different schedule on this day, and we had to make it work. We had to get going, and it is good to have boxing during the week. Obviously, we thought that on the 17th was going to be the big fight with Usyk and Fury, but it didn't happen. And as an addition to this incredible event, Sugar Hill Stewart, who is going to be in Tyson Fury's corner in May, was going to be in his corner in February, will join the broadcast team and kind of give his expertise on the fights and some of the fighters that he knows from Detroit.
Can we take from that announcement that Sugar Hill's not in camp with Fury yet? Like, their camp won't have resumed yet, presumably.
Yeah, I think, well, those are questions for Sugar, but yeah, I think that they took a little break, but I know that they've been working hard for a long time. I think since last year. So, I hear a lot of stuff online about this fight. I know that Tyson is super focused, and Sugar, like I said before, with Sugar Hill in his corner, I feel that Tyson is close to being unbeatable. So I'm very excited about the fight, and it's great for boxing that these big fights are happening.
You clearly know Sugar Hill very well. What has he said to you about not so much what people are saying online, but just generally the disappointment of having to postpone the fight?
Sugar is very experienced, and he actually said nothing. He doesn't. I think he just kind of rolls with the punches, because there's been many times in boxing where things almost happen but don't happen. So until they happen, they don't happen. So, and he and I had many conversations about different fights that people talk about happening, that you read about on the internet, and he's like, you know what, it's not happening until the contract is signed or until there's a press conference. So Sugar, and for all the time that I know him, was pretty cool about this, and it's part of being a professional, is just kind of dealing with what you got and making the best of it.
And you know that he's a man of integrity. So when you read those allegations, if you like, online, speculations, probably more accurate, does it frustrate you, because you know that stuff that people are talking about wouldn't go on in a camp involving Sugar Hill?
Yeah, I mean, it's boxing gossip, and it's what makes the sport sometimes exciting. It's what it is what it is. So I don't really pay much attention. I know that Sugar is very focused. I know that Tyson is very focused, and I know that it's always a no-nonsense type of camp, and they get down to business when it's time to get down to business. So it doesn't, and this happens in every facet of boxing, or not even boxing. People look at things and speculate, and that's just our human nature. But by the way, when I read this stuff, it's not for me to speculate, or whatever happens in these camps is up to them. It's not, fight time is the time to see what these guys are all about, what they did, what they didn't do, and how prepared they are. And certainly through the lifetime of Tyson Fury's career, he's beaten some of the greatest heavyweights in the sport. So whatever he does must work. And certainly he's been in more than a fair share of big fights. So he knows how to handle the situation in these camps. And he's one of the greatest heavyweights of all time. So I think that they know what they're doing.
Yeah, I agree. So let's get to the DAZN deal. Exciting stuff. It's not easy to get a broadcast deal in the current boxing environment, the likes of Showtime and further back HBO leaving the sport. How did it come about? I mean, I know you've had stuff on DAZN before, but how did the longer term deal come to fruition?
Well, boxing is a changing landscape here in the United States. Like you said, some of the big broadcasts like HBO and now Showtime is out, and Showbox has been a platform that we've been very successful on, developing many great fighters like Clarissa Shields, Jarrell Miller, Otto Whalen, Shurja Gashev, Vladimir Shishkin. I mean, the list goes on of all the fighters that fought in it. And we had many guys that were very good, that we thought were very good, that got tested and that lost their O on Showbox. So this is kind of I feel like in this environment in the United States, a talent development platform is much needed, and a high-level platform is needed. So we're very grateful to be able to team up on the DAZN for this big-time Boxing USA series. We have Raul Marquez, who was a Showtime Showbox announcer, former world champion, very knowledgeable in the sport. And in a way, I'd like to pick up where Showbox left off, in a way, in terms of testing and showcasing some of the new young talent, some of the contenders in competitive fights. And I believe that this is going to be a very exciting series. It's going to give, I believe it's going to be very unique and showcase some of the best talent from the United States and also from around the world. Like on the February 20th card, we have Ali Ismailov, who is only 11-0. He's number 7 on BoxRec, USBA champion, beat an undefeated world rated fighter in his last fight, which was on Showtime. Many people say he's the 3rd best light heavyweight in the world after Beterbiev and Bivol. And he's certainly out to prove himself on February 20th. In the main event, we have Marlon Harrington from Detroit fighting Adriel Holmes from Flint, Michigan. Also cross state, a tough fight between two very talented fighters. Deval Smith, the old-timers say he's the next Tommy Hearns from the Kronk Boxing Gym. Wow. Very good fighter, big puncher, big middleweight. Joshua Pagan, U.S. national champion, undefeated junior welterweight. Joseph Hicks, U.S. Olympic team captain, coming down from middleweight to junior middleweight. So it's a stacked card. Cameron Pankey, undefeated featherweight from Michigan. So it's a stacked card with some of the best talent in the sport, and we're very excited about it. And I look forward to the fights taking place, and certainly the fans tuning in and checking it out. And one of the other things that I want to say, there were many places where we could have done this show, and I feel that Detroit, as you know, we've been working in Detroit for a long time, but Detroit is one of the historic hometowns of boxing and has so much talent in the state of Michigan. I mean, like Mayweather, Clarissa Shields, Tommy Hearns, the Kronk Boxing Gym, Emmanuel Stewart, Sugar Hill Stewart, Theo Chambers, another trainer. He trains Jake Paul now. There's just so much talent. Some of it, most of it is known, but there's a lot that's not known. Tony Harrison, K9 Bundridge, I mean, just Joe Lewis. The list goes on. And to bring boxing here, I feel will revitalize the professional and the amateur boxing scene. And I'm a big advocate of a healthy amateur boxing program, because only good things happen when there's a good foundation and a good system for young fighters to learn boxing and to be motivated to be champions. So all of it is National Golden Gloves are going to be in Detroit, by the way, in the coming months. So all of it, I believe, is kind of an interconnected system to help boxing rejuvenate itself in Detroit and Michigan, and also throughout the United States. One of the things that I want to say, I know that I'm talking without you asking questions, but I do want to say this to the fans because it's important. People talk about exclusivity. I like inclusivity, and we work with a lot of different promoters to make sure that the biggest and the best fights happen. This show is an example. Our next shows are going to be an example of that, with different managers, with different people in the boxing business. Regardless of anything, we as professionals in the game owe it to the broadcaster, most importantly to the boxing fans and to our fighters, to make the biggest and the best fights. So I've done it throughout the opportunities that I've had on every one of my shows, and I'm going to do it again. And through that, I believe that through that path, the boxing fans and the boxing community are going to get the best that we can make. And the other thing that I feel is very important, we want to benefit the communities where we do business at. So for our February 20th show, we teamed up with Forgotten Harvest, which is a non-for-profit organization that helps feed and give food to families, to people that are struggling in the state of Michigan and in Detroit. and the fighters are going to participate. Besides contributing to it financially, we're also going to have fighters participate in different activities to get ingrained in the community. And that's one of the things that'll make boxing big and rejuvenated, and make the fans get involved, and make the fighters give back to the communities where they grew up, and that help them. So I think it's very important, and I'm very grateful to be able to have these initiatives.
Now, with Showtime leaving the sport, and you've managed to work out a deal, of course, with DAZN for Salita Promotions, and we're all looking forward to that. We've also seen PBC do their own deal with Amazon Prime. There was a lot of talk about what that would look like. I think we discussed it in a previous interview. The first show has been announced quite some time after the deal was agreed, for March the 30th. Tim Tszyu, Keith Thurman in the main event. On pay-per-view, predominantly. I know the undercard's going to be on streaming service, but not extra fee. What are the respective benefits, in your view, of going with a streaming service like DAZN or going with a more pay-per-view centric model?
Well, I feel like, the sport of boxing is going through a renaissance, and is going to fit into the kind of the new day and age. Everything is on streaming now. HBO is on streaming, Showtime's on streaming, every ESPN is streaming, everything's streaming. So I feel that DAZN is making a big play, and an aggressive play in the world of sports, and certainly here in the United States, and has great content. It's also good to see Amazon and PBC get involved through it. I just read what WWE did a deal with Netflix, which may mean that they're going to get into boxing as well. Maybe yes, maybe no. So very important for our sport to grow is the ability to, first of all, have consistency, have great fights, and to tell stories, and for sports fans to tune into those streams and be able to get motivated and engaged in those stories, because through storytelling, fighters become stars and they become influencers, and the sport grows. And it's very important. And all athletes, but certainly boxers, don't turn out to be elite professionals if everything was normal in their lives, usually. And everybody through a different way can relate to that, and they're all very interesting and very engaging, and from different communities. So I feel storytelling is a big part of boxing, and I want boxing to grow globally, because everybody benefits and the sport grows. And I look forward to watching what happens on March 30th. And I wonder how much of the Showtime crew is going to be part of those events.
One of the biggest things for the sport in terms of your deal with DAZN, and this is something Eddie Hearn was talking about not long ago, the need to still create big, sellable, commercially viable domestic events. Because boxing at the moment, for however long it lasts, is pushing towards Saudi and the Middle East so much. What do you make of that kind of shift from the centres of New York and Vegas and even London in the past to now predominantly Riyadh?
Well, I think it's great for the sport, to be honest with you, because those fights would not get made if not for the initiative from Saudi Arabia. I think that the promoters would not come and work together, and whatever they're doing is great. I was obviously involved to some extent with the two fights back in December, but I think it's good for the sport. However, I don't think that it affects what we do domestically in any way, because the promoter's job is to promote and to develop young stars, and to make the initiatives for them to be stars to fight in big time arenas, like you said. We had Clarissa fight in Little Caesars Arena, which is the first time they had professional boxing, had over 11,000 people in the building. I feel like if she goes and fights in Riyadh, it'll only add to her brand when she comes back to the United States. And because of streaming, because of television, the world is a smaller place. So even though something happens somewhere else, the boxing fans still see it and still digest it and still get motivated by it. However, if we talk about big fights and they don't happen, doesn't matter where they happen. If they don't happen, that hurts the sport. So big fights happening and the press writing about it and people getting inspired and saying this guy's going to win, and the other side is saying that side is going to win. That's great for the sport, and the fights have to happen.
And the next big fight in Riyadh, certainly the main event, is Anthony Joshua and Francis Ngannou. Knockout chaos, I think, is how they've termed the show. What do you make of that fight, the kind of crossover element of it, and how big a threat do you think Ngannou poses in traditional boxing?
You know, it's like Mayweather versus McGregor and Ngannou versus Tyson Fury. When you fight strong, fit guys that know how to fight and are confident and are in good shape, it's difficult to box them because boxing and fighting is different. And the awkwardness of someone like Ngannou is difficult to deal with. The awkwardness and the physical strength. He's very strong and he's a very big puncher, and he can take a punch. So he's a tough guy, and I believe that he's still relatively unknown in terms of what he could do in a ring. Even though he showed some of it against Tyson Fury, he's still relatively unknown. I got to tell you, in amateur boxing, a lot of times, fighters that were physically strong, not so skilled, but in good shape, did very well against elite, high-level boxers. And boxing is boxing. So that's what I've seen happen with Ngannou versus Tyson Fury. Maybe Tyson probably mentally underestimated him and had to adjust to what was going on in the ring. However, you know, guys like Ngannou, who obviously did a great job, they themselves don't know how they're going to react in a boxing ring. They themselves don't know how they're going to throw the punch. So it's very difficult to react to that because, you know, you're taught for years, you slip a jab, you pull back, you block, you parry. But these guys do things that are so unorthodox and so unusual that it's sometimes difficult to deal with. So Anthony Joshua looked the best he's looked in a long, long time against Toto Whale in his last fight. If he can use that distance and that range, he'll be very successful with Ngannou. If he won't be able to get in and out like he did with Otto, he may have some trouble. And especially if Ngannou catches him, you know, it may send some shockwaves throughout the boxing world.
And just before I let you go, it wouldn't be a Dmitry Salita interview if I didn't ask you about Clarissa Shields, and you mentioned her a few moments ago. Her next fight's in PFL, I believe, rather than boxing. But what's the 2024 plan? What's her schedule looking like?
We are actually currently discussing it. Depends on what happens in the fight in Riyadh, but hoping she comes out physically well. We do plan for her to fight several times this year. She's going to have some big news coming out later in the summer about her that is going to make her brand and really the sport of boxing grow to new heights. So
she's not running for president, is she?
No, she's not running for president.
So yeah, so big news in the summer, and then so we will see her in the boxing ring as well as PFL over this year.
For sure, yes. She's fighting on the 24th in the PFL and getting her exposure over to the MMA fans. So it's all good, keeping her fit, keeping her active. Savannah Marshall is also signed with the PFL. So, you know, who knows what's going to happen there. But yes, our goal is to get her back in the ring and get her back into exciting fights and in exciting places and continue the growth of women's boxing and boxing with her initiative.
We'll give you the opportunity for one final promo for all the fans watching this now. Why should they tune in to your show on Tuesday in Detroit?
Tuesday, February 20th, live on DAZN, Big Time Boxing USA. First show in this multi-series of events. Main event, big punching Marlon Harrington fighting Adriel Holmes for the USBA title. Ali Ismailov, maybe in the co-main event, Ali Ismailov, maybe the third best light heavyweight in the world, defending his USBA title. And then a load of the best American prospects in their respective weight classes. Junior welterweight, now going to lightweight, Joshua Pagan. Devell Smith, the next time he earns. Joseph Hicks, Houston Olympic team captain. Cameron Pankey, undefeated featherweight. Just a loaded card with lots of exciting talent in competitive fights. And would love to, for the boxing fans, on the 21st and 22nd to comment on what they thought of these fighters.
Excellent. Well, I'm sure they will. They're not normally backwards in coming forwards in that regard. Dmitry, really appreciate your time and very best of luck for Tuesday.
Thank you so much.